weeks since we've been on.
And today, by the way, welcome back, Mark. You're looking great.
I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm feeling pretty good.
You're looking good.
I'm alive and
Got back from your father's 80th birthday.
80th birthday.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Dad. That was an amazing birthday. We had a great time. My mom definitely surprised the sugar out of him. It was a great event, and we just had a great time. The kids loved it. We got in the camper van, as they like to call it, and we went rolling on up to Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
The camper van. So, hey, before we get too far, if you all want to dial in tonight and call us, you can call us at 270-945-3418. That's 270-945-3418. This is the conversation on Meade Truth. Live from
Paid for by the Republican Party.
Paid for by the Republican Party and live from the Messenger Studios.
Live from the Messenger Studios. That's right.
So
and every once in a while, I think it's kind of cool because some of the content you're doing is actually newsworthy. And I actually kind of, under our arrangement, will take, especially when y'all are interviewing or we get the opportunity to interview some key folks. I like to bleed that over into the Messenger because it's an interview, honestly, and I think it's newsworthy because this is community based. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that do happen. I mean, I know we have our own podcast here, but there are a lot of things that we do that kind of overlap.
Yep.
And I think that's perfectly fine for us to have that. I mean, it's a separate thing, but it's pretty good. But
I know it just gets shady when we try to draw the lines and make sure it's clear, it's legal, and all that stuff. So.
We pay the Messenger for the studio and the studio time and the work they're doing over there.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. So as long as we're paying for it, we say that we pay for it.
I got receipts to show you paid for it.
Right. And then the Messenger Studios there for our vendor at that point. So it works about fine. It's just it is. You want to make sure that we do talk about the fact that this is while this is from the studios, this is the Meade County Republican Party podcast.
Yeah, this is their podcast.
Yep. So,
which I'm glad to be a part of. Thank you for the last 2 years, Mark.
Hey, you know what? It wouldn't have happened without you. So,
I don't. Well, yeah.
I mean, we were doing the paper and things like that, but
you encouraged me.
You know, I think that the fact that you and I have a similar background and a similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do the Army. You did the Army.
Yeah, I got it.
But when it got outside of that, outside of our occupations, you and I are, I think I was saying a little bit earlier that, you and I spend a lot of time together just because we have common interest and we're involved in some of the same things in the community and in church and things. So it's pretty awesome. So
well, we are live and there's a lot to talk about. If you don't mind, I'll take us off.
Yeah, please. So do. I'm gonna look up a couple things.
I had the pleasure today. I want to send a shout out. Not that kind of shout. I want to send a shout out to Mayor David Pace. 50 hats he wears. But from the Industrial Authority Board, they sponsored what was called a legislative update today. And so we were fortunate today, Mark, to have a senator of the 5th District, Stephen Meridith, present. And we had the 26th District, I think it is, 26th or 27th, Representative Nancy Tate.
Yep.
And I thought they did a brilliant job. They came, there was some opposition questions today. I thought they were brilliant. I had a question today for them from the Messenger point of view, and it was on House Bill 38. I know that Nancy and Stephen both didn't have a part in it, but they both said yes. And House Bill 38 was one that protects veterans against people who go out to help them get their file for their benefits from, taking all their money from them.
Gotcha, right.
And it put additional protections for Kentucky citizens. And there's a couple of...
So you're talking about it's protecting veterans who get caught up in some of these traps of people who say, hey, call us and we'll go through all this. And then they're taking a percentage.
That's right. They'll get a big percentage and they don't see a lot of their money that they should see because they've been obligated.
Because they didn't know they could just do it themselves and they didn't have
for free. For free through.
And there's a lot of people out there that help you.
Shout out to CMP Garage in Elizabethtown. They took over the old bank that was in Elizabethtown. CMP Garage, Carlos Fernandez and his team of ladies. I've seen them at the VFW, but they're a non-profit organization. They don't want a dime from you. You can make a donation to them, but you're not required to do that. They work completely off of donations. They're and they do this service for free. Those are the ones that are not.
Are they a 501c3?
They are a 501c3.
Nice.
And then, but when you've got an attorney that says, well, you don't owe us a dime, but if we do get your claim, you in back pay, we get 80% of your back pay. You only get 20%, and we get your 60% of your first year's settlement. Our payments if you're 100% or whatever. So
I mean, I understand that there's a lot of there are a lot of lawyers that work on contingencies, but there's fair and then there's. Yeah.
It's not that it is. I've been through the process. It is a process to file for a VA claim. It's not really the claim and getting the paperwork in that's the problem. It's all of the doctor's appointments and all that other stuff that you have to go to that's part of the VA process. But regardless, I think that there are better serving organizations out there, and I think that this bill helps protect any of our veterans that are Kentucky residents.
Very good. I mean, it's I like to see people filling a need, a hole in our community. And I know it's not in Brandenburg or Meade County, but Elizabethtown, Radcliffe, that's our community too.
That's right. Now, on top of that, there are other bills that are military veteran related. And of course, that's my background. So suicide resources available for veterans. And it's not just veterans. There's people in Kentucky too that also help Kentuckians with mental disabilities that lead to suicide to help get them the help.
You got to think about when a soldier comes back, and then you are way more aware of this than I am. I mean, they have seen stuff that I will never understand, but they've seen,
and you can't unsee it.
And
you can't unsee it.
We use that term a lot, just like, hey, I can, now I can't unsee that. We say it kind of like in jest and stuff, but that's a true statement. You can't. You're not really going to forget ever, unfortunately, and you need. Those people need to know that there's resources out there that help, and we need to provide that type of resource.
Sure.
And I'm glad that there's people out there that are doing that. So
now, I'll tell you, they spend a lot of time. So, I complimented on that, and I'll let it go on and let them talk about some of the other work that was going on with the veterans. It was kind of a trigger question to get them to talk more about some of the other stuff that wasn't necessarily their priority bill, but they were also on board with. You know what I mean? And it plays.
I mean, I know that Nancy Tate and Steve Meridith both support our veterans.
100%.
And they've always been on top of that. I mean, again, it's I think we've had some really good people who have represented us. There's other people that are running in for office and stuff, so I'm not trying to take away. I'm just commenting simply on
today. That's it.
On what they've done, their accomplishments and things. This is not an endorsement, but it's a.
Yeah, no, I get it. You're keeping it. Yeah, but for what they've done with the work that they've done, that we are following up with. And today they also spoke about House Bill 1, and then I forget what the other House bill was, but the two bills that had to do with the budget that they worked on. House Bill 1 was never heard of before. They took money that was I hate to use the word surplus. It was money from investing and saving that they utilized to do a one-time injection for monies across different things that needed it across the state. It's not a continuous flow of money. It's not a guarantee you're always going to get this.
No, but it's good that
it was a one-time injection.
It's good that when you've pinched your pennies and you've watched your budget to the point that and made the right investments in our communities and in our industries and things like that to make things easier for people to start businesses, to people to go to work here, and people to bring jobs to Kentucky, and that results in extra money that comes in. Maybe it's very short term, and the fact that they don't want to count those chickens, if you will, like they're going to be there forever. Yeah. They do the right things, and then when that money builds up, and then it's like, okay, we've got this money here.
Yeah.
Now, we still have our rainy day fund, but we've got enough money right here that we can go invest and make another another big investment for Kentucky and for
That's right.
businesses, and that's what they're doing.
Now they said in that saving strategy,
And it's responsible.
Yeah, no, I got it right.
Yeah.
Responsible and fiscal responsibility. So they said when they first started, Nancy 6 years ago, Steve 8 years ago, there was maybe 15 days of reserve funds. Now they're well over 30, if not 45 days, I believe, in the conversation today. And based on the way that they're saving and being conservative, we'll have over 60 days of monies
Right.
that are that rainy day fund, as you like to call it.
Right. It means that if something happened drastic, they could keep the government and everything in Kentucky as is.
That's right.
Running for 60 days. Well, at that point, it'll be up to 60 days. Right now, it's around 45.
That's right.
They're pushing it to get to 60, and then that and anything above and beyond that.
Yeah.
That's the excess when we say excess, that's what we mean.
That's
We're
right.
gonna
They're
fulfill all of our obligations. We're paying our making sure that our debt to our teachers and our for retirements and things are being paid, and now we're going to be able to finally do some more investing in
with that responsibility. Much like the programs they've done for our veterans, they did inject money in House Bill 1. No, it's not Brashear's request, Governor Brashear's request of giving all of the teachers a raise, because you can't just simply give all the teachers a raise. You know what I mean? But what they did do in House Bill 1 is they injected money into every school district equitably, right? Because an example down in, is it Greene County with Mammoth Cave? Mammoth Cave National Forest, or that whole area, takes up most of the county, so there's not a huge population of residents that pay the bills.
There's a lot of very, very rural areas in Kentucky. We consider Meade County rural. We have a lot of farmland, a lot of such, but there's some places in Kentucky that are there are nothing but forest. There's a handful of people per square mile.
That's right.
A lot of these places,
and they would not have gotten the same injection if it was based off of their number of population.
Right, but those places need the investment as well, because
That's right.
they're always going to be that way. They're always going to be lacking resources if we don't put those resources, if we don't include them in.
That's right.
Things. And it's a good thing to do.
And they didn't inject the money and say, okay, give everybody a teacher raise. They gave the money to the school districts. The school districts decide who give the raise. And the reason why I bring this up is because there was a question asked of them, and it went right down the list of all these things, from an educator point of view. And both of them said that education was a priority for them. If you saw the last report that I saw about education in Kentucky and how we stack up to the rest of the country, we are way down at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it is awful compared to where we stand federally on that stuff. So naturally, it is a concern for them. Yes, we want to pay our teachers more money. Yes, we want to have good school districts. But there's so many federal requirements that have to be met in our education system, and it's very difficult to meet those federal requirements when you can't keep enough teachers. So it's also being enticing enough to get teachers in. So that's a huge problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
statewide, and like you said, for our rural and other stuff. But to the point that they did make an effort to address education and funding so that the school districts could do their own raises internally, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about all of that is, and by no means do I want to cut any funding to the schools.
No.
But I do want to hold schools accountable for making sure the children have a basic education. That's right. The only thing that we owe anyone is a basic education. If you recall from history, the biggest problem with education was people just didn't know how to read and write.
Yep. Still a problem in America today.
It is. But it's not like it was 150 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So 150 years ago, it was the reading and writing. The percentage of folks who had proficient reading and writing were much lower than it is today. And that's because we have a strong education system. The problem I have with the education system today is that it's become so, I believe that the education system has become very wide and very shallow, that we're not getting into the depths of, all we owe people is the ability to learn. We don't owe them a full-on education and everything they want to do, right? we only owe them the ability to get there, the opportunity to get there, and people didn't have to take advantage of. That's why this whole thing is like, about 30 years ago, the big push came that everybody had to have a bachelor's degree, right? All of a sudden it was like, well, they wanted you, at one point it was like they wanted you to have some college, right? An associate's degree or what have you. But then it became, hey, I want to be you need to have a bachelor's degree to work in this industry. And it's like, before that, everybody was being taught how to do these jobs. And I'll tell you, in my industry, and I'm not going to get into who I work for or whatever on my regular day-to-day job, but, what I see a lot is there's a lot of people who we can't find qualified applicants in the areas that we are, because either there's one big company that is, buying up the labor force, or maybe two or three big companies out west, especially out west on the West Coast. And so when you have a company like ours that needs to have workers, and you're competing against these bigger guys that are able to spend 2 or 3 times what you make or what you can spend, because
I made a correction to his House Bill 39, not House Bill 38. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So thanks for letting us know, because I was like, I wasn't familiar with that, but I wasn't sure which one it was. But anyway, in a nutshell, we used to just train people inside the company and train them into a position. So you would hire them in a little bit lower rate, and then you would build them up and then give them pay raises to get when they got to where you needed them to be. And then they're making a regular wage. But now it's such a push to say everybody has to make $15. Everybody has to make $20. That creates a problem where I cannot take the time. I have to get results for those people, or I have to increase rates. And if I increase the rates, then I lose customers, because in my industry, we're in service. And in the service industry, you're already behind the curve of, I'm not just competing against other people, I'm competing against manufacturing. Yeah. Because, hey, if the cost to repair something, is, more than 50% of the cost of something new, then the customer will say, well, we'll just throw it away and buy new ones. And because we get better warranties and things like that, we don't have to worry about that. You all will take care of it from a manufacturer. Well, that kills the service industry. And so, when you say, hey, everybody has to make $20 an hour, when the service industry is taking people who don't necessarily have degrees. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you tell me I got to make everybody make $20 an hour, the newspaper will not survive.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And
everybody's going to be mad because the subscription rates are going to go up.
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, people are probably not going to buy the paper. And the whole point of having the paper is to communicate in a very cheap way, in a very personal way. When you're holding a paper in your hand, that's a very personal thing. And a lot of people, even kids
just
today,
like writing a note.
People say, well, the print, a lot of people, you and I have had this conversation before. A lot of people said the print is dead, but it's not dead.
Nah, it's not dead.
What it is you have to give them a product that they can easily obtain.
And they enjoy reading.
And, we got so lost in the political spectrum of life, of everything you read on the mainstream, that I don't want to pay for that, right? I don't want to go buy a paper I'm not going to go buy a paper if I'm going to read stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. Yeah. Before because when it was balanced, you could afford to go, hey, I'll buy this paper, and I know I'm going to get some articles that maybe I don't agree with, but I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get some nuggets out of that. And then on the other side, you had people that, but you would also have articles that you agreed with, and then you could also see where, even on the stuff you agree with, you could see where there's maybe an extreme that you can, and you end up with a balanced. When you put balanced information in front of people, we learn more, and we get and we figure out how to make strides as a community. But right now, it's very difficult, and you look at what you see, and you see what's happened with the information that comes out from the White House. They were supposed to be the most Joe Biden was supposed to have the most transparent. It's everything but transparent. It's not even close to transparent. everything that you look at what comes out of the White House today and the things that Joe Biden has done, and they're showing actual proof of what he's done and what his family's done. They're the mainstream media are going to play this game of it's worse. They in their mind, it is absolutely worse to have Donald Trump as the president than to have somebody who is selling America to China or to Russia. Yeah. And I believe that's what I see happening out of our White House today.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, we're moving into the primary, so we should wrap up. It's clear who our Republican nominee is for the presidential.
Absolutely.
But, we
have local
elections. That's where I was going. You and I, man.
I know, we're there.
Yeah, I got it. So
you're sitting way over there, but we're together.
We're there. On here, they think we're there.
Yeah.
But we're here. Anyway, so
we're all in one. Steve and I are in one room. We're talking to each other.
Yeah, somebody has to produce and be on the show while the other one gets to have all the.
If anybody wants to come and volunteer to produce this show for us, then we would gladly teach you if you're interested.
So anyway, so the primary is coming up. It's coming up May the 21st is the voting day, and there's early voting prior to.
Basically, you can go to you'll be able to go to the fairgrounds and such. Basically, the 3 days prior. So, I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
and then Tuesday.
So the Monday, everything at the fairgrounds is closed down, and the voting areas are set up.
And it's super important to vote, even in a primary.
It's the most important time to vote. Is the primary. It's more important to me to vote in the primary than it is in the
general election.
In the general election, because that's when you make choices about who is really going to represent you. If you like the person that's in, you get to go and protect them and say, yes, I want you to stay there.
Keep doing it.
Right. And if there's somebody, if you don't want the person, if you don't like what everything that person stands for, then that's your opportunity to go find somebody else
and check the box.
Yeah. And exactly. So when you do that it's so important to be able to have your voice heard at that moment.
Yeah.
Even though, again, there's going to be another election in November, and I'm not trying to discount that. I'm just trying to say it doesn't seem if you vote in May.
Yeah.
When you vote in May, there may not be opposition in the primary, in the general election rather.
Mm-hmm.
And so the primary is your opportunity to come and vote. If we only have 15 to 16% people show up, and a lot of that's going to, and that's the numbers we could be talking about for May.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Donald Trump has already won.
No.
Right? He's already won
but
he's already won the.
There are other people on the ballot.
I know, but in their minds, this is presidential election, so Donald Trump's already won. So why do I have to go? You have to go because there's other people that are involved.
That's right.
There's your representative. Every 2 years, you represent your U.S. representatives.
Mm-hmm.
For here, it's Brett Guthrie.
Mm-hmm.
Every 2 years, they have to vote. They have to run again. Mm-hmm. Your state representative, Nancy Tate, she has to run every 2 years, right? And this year you have Steve Meridith, and he has an opponent in the primary. Mm-hmm. So, which is good to have people stepping up to say, hey, I want to, I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on, and I want to get involved. That's a great thing to have primaries. It doesn't always, feel good as a candidate to have somebody come up and say, I don't agree with you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's good for the process. It's good for the party to say, we've got people who are willing to step up. You do have to, but I want you to go educate yourself. And I'm talking to you guys out there. Go educate yourself on what each of these candidates stand for. Look at what the record is of Steve Meridith. Go look and see what the platform, and my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. The gentleman that's running.
Tom Ballinger.
Thank you, Tom Ballinger. Sorry, Tom. I didn't mean to. Just all of a sudden, I had a moment in my approaching old age time here.
CRS. Can't remember stuff.
Can't remember stuff. And but Tom Ballinger, go see what he's about and understand. I would never advocate getting rid of somebody just to get rid of somebody. That's why I have a
due process.
I have a strong feeling about term limits. I don't necessarily agree with term limits, especially when we're talking about people who represent us
Well,
individually.
and after
For
today,
president and executives, yes, I do.
Yeah,
for the executive branch, I definitely believe in term limits.
just to look at what there's over 1,200, if not 2,200 bills that are in legislation. I think Senator Meridith today and even Nancy Tate had talked about, there should be a limit on the number of bills that people present.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
because there's
either they have to limit the number of bills or we have to give them more time to go through it.
exactly, and
One of
they're
those
not going
two
to give
things
them
have to happen.
They're not going to give them more time. So,
And it's so frustrating because I hear people say, well, they're just not getting everything done that I want them to get done. I said, well, we only give them 30 days one year and 60 days the next.
I know it.
I mean, what do you expect them to do? I mean, you don't want them to just go up there and rubber stamp.
Well, and he
something.
said, out of all the bills that he has in his one committee, right? He tries to hear 4 bills. He's only got an hour for committee, and 15 minutes is not a lot of time to litigate a bill. And so it's not a lot of time to cram in something that's supposed to make the state better.
Yeah, I mean, so you rely on you rely a lot on your work sessions and things like that, but and staff. People they have shared staff and stuff that help them write bills and things, and some of them have agendas.
Oh yeah,
and so you have to be careful and watch over that. And so you got to be very careful about.
Primary is coming, folks.
It is.
Now, I don't think there's anybody running against Nancy. There is a Democratic opponent that will be in the general election.
In the general, yes.
But there's nobody running against Nancy in the seat. So, but still, go and vote. Put your name on the thing.
I can't ask you, or I can't beg you enough to go vote on in the primary in May. It's important that you go out and vote. Show your support.
Now you can't do straight.
Even if Donald Trump has got it sewn up, go and vote for him so you can show people that he's your guy.
Now this is not the one you go vote straight Republican ticket on.
No,
because you're only going to get the vote
right.
for the Republicans who are running for each of the seats.
That's right.
And you actually have to choose between who is your best Republican, to Mark's point. So do your research. Go look up your candidates. They have platforms. Steve has 8 years in the Senate. He's got a record. You can go look at his record.
That's right.
Tom Ballinger has a platform. I think he points out a lot of Steve's record, and there's a lot of back and forth conversations that are in there that can sway votes. It can go both ways, but you got to get on and you got to do your homework. I think Mark and I will always probably have a neutral role at this time of the year.
We just have to. I mean, for primaries, I can't endorse one Republican over another.
Yeah.
Even if in the back of my mind, personally, I have a preference, as we all do as humans. But I've met both of these men. I've known Steve for a long time. I've met Mr. Ballinger, on a couple different occasions, and we've had great conversations. We had him on this show, and we've had great conversations. He and I owe each other a discussion or a debate over term limits.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't, to me, term limits doesn't make sense when you're talking about a representative I want to go represent me. If you get your way and you say, hey, I cannot have, I don't want this person. Let's say they term limit Brett Guthrie, right? And I like Brett Guthrie. I want him to go represent me. By term limiting Brett Guthrie, you would say, Mark, you're not allowed to have the person that you want. You have to go choose somebody else. And that is so wrong.
Plus the time it takes to get the work done.
When we're talking about representatives.
I mean, look at the stonewalling.
Represent me.
Yeah, that's right.
Not representing. Right.
But look at the stonewalling that's gone on in Congress for just the last 4 years between presidents, old and new. Right. I mean, the Senate, the 60 vote rule in the Senate is tough, and it's a good thing. Yeah.
Right.
But if you are getting stonewalled for 2 years, your 2 years of your stuff, it's hard to legislate and get laws passed.
It is.
And you still have a great agenda that represents you and I, but it can't get through because of the DC politics,
Yeah. And I know a lot of people say, well, why do we have this 60 vote rule in the Senate? Why don't we just do away with that? And because it's not law, it's the rules of the Senate. So the Senate sets the rules each session, not each session, but each term. And so, and what this says is that basically to get something through a filibuster, which for those who may not understand what a filibuster actually is, it's basically if you have enough voters, enough people in the Senate, enough senators, that you can actually go and talk until the time runs out.
That's right.
That's really what a filibuster is. I'm going to keep the discussion going.
As long as there are people seated in the Senate.
And to end the discussion, you have to have 60 votes, right? So to end in the Senate, you have to have at least 60 votes to end the discussion and call the question to be able to have a vote, to call a vote. And so that's what you're talking about. That's what the 60-vote rule actually is.
I always think of Rand Paul when I think of a filibuster because he's the master of filibuster.
He is a filibuster king. He and sometimes I really appreciate Rand Paul. Most of the time, I appreciate Rand Paul for his stance on things. Sometimes,
especially
I don't.
Spending money.
But yeah, because he's trying. And most of the time, he's trying to keep us from spending money that we shouldn't spend. But
that's right.
If you guys can go to C-SPAN and watch some of the you see Rand Paul quite a bit on C-SPAN on the floor of the Senate.
Extremely theatrical.
Yeah, and he's telling you the true. He's telling you. We're spending money on. We're worried about whether or not we're going to have Medicare, but we're spending millions of dollars on these little bitty
research studies
on
to determine whether or not if two men can have a baby.
Not just that. I mean, it's like the silly stuff. Is a person happy because they bought a car 5 years ago?
Yeah,
right?
no, I know. I just say
that kind of stuff is. I mean, those are real studies that have happened, and we don't need to go spend $500,000 on that or $1 million on that.
No, sir.
And it's like, I get
who
it. But
paid the senator that much money to get that kind of grant?
Well, I mean, it's not just that.
I
know. I mean, it's like it's each senator's pet projects and things like that. But Rand Paul is calling that stuff out to say, listen, guys, if we want to save some money, let's save some money. There's a story that out there, and I can't speak it verbatim, but it goes like this: that it's got something like, Davy Crockett was actually a representative from Tennessee. Yeah. Right. Davy Crockett. Right. Yeah. So Davy Crockett was a senator, or I think he was actually a representative in the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives from Tennessee. They talk about a lot of his lore, if you will, was self-aggrandizement for running for like a lot of people say he stole a lot of Daniel Boone's actual life and made it kind of his own. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But he really did. He did go fight in the Alamo and died in the Alamo, and that's all true. And there's a lot of things that he did do very positively. But one thing that happened was, and I think it was Davy Crockett that said this, but there was a gentleman that was one of his constituents. There was a fire that happened in Washington D.C. Right, and they came. They came and asked for monies from the federal treasury, to help recover this fire, this big giant fire that happened in D.C. or in that general area. Maybe it wasn't in actual D.C., but it was right around there, somewhere in the Maryland area, I think. Anyway, and you can go look at the story up. But this guy came back and told him when he was back at home in Tennessee, this guy came up to him and says, "I will not be able to vote for you again." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean? Why?" And he said, "Here's the thing. Because you voted to take money out of the treasury to help to recover those people," he said, "I understand that everybody feels bad and they want to help, but you can't do that for every part of the United States. You can't afford to do that everywhere. And for you to vote money that you don't own, that you don't control, and put in to pay for this one group of people's to recover this one group of people, I cannot vote for you for that." And that's a very good thing. And what he went on to say was, so the next time something came up like that, Davy Crockett said, "I can only vote if he says I cannot vote for this However, he says, I will be glad to donate my 1 month of my salary to that effort if everyone, I think we all should do that.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because this is kind of like why I've got an ad in the paper this week. If you're a 501c3, I want to be the dumping ground of all your activities in the newspaper.
That's a needed thing.
And the reason why is because I ask people, I walk around, do you know which organizations support those who have drug and addiction problems in our county? No, I don't. And there are several in our county that do that, and that are doing that either in food pantries and adult seniors center and the VFWs and the volunteer fire departments and all of these people who help our community. I am a big advocate for tax breaks for people giving money to these organizations and spending their money the way they want to than the federal government investing in programs that we invest in our own community.
I would even advocate to say that it should be above, that those type of donations should be above, should be deductible above and beyond the standard.
100%. 100%.
When they took those out, that's rough, because now people don't give.
You don't get a vote on where and how you help your community.
That's right.
Because the government's determining who should get that money, and then your fire situation. Right. This is a prime example of why government should not be involved in that. But anyway, listen, it's been a great show, Mark. I know we got a little bit of time left, but I know there's some things coming up with the Republican Party. Do you want to take us there? Talk about our upcoming events?
So we do have our our district convention coming up at the end of April. It will be April 20th, I believe.
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
And then following that up next month, we will have the state. So we'll have the one in Bowling Green for the district, and then the state will be over in Somerset, and that is for the Republican Party of Kentucky, RPK. We'll have our district and state conventions, and those we will choose delegates to go that will represent the United States or represent Kentucky at the U.S. Republican Party convention, and so on and so forth. So those things are coming up, and then don't forget, go vote in May.
Yeah.
It is so important to get out and vote. If you have any questions about where you need to vote, what have you, you can reach out to the Meade County Clerk's office. You'll be able to go to I'm sure the messenger will be running a get out the vote, or voter information, not a get out the vote necessarily, but a voter information.
I will be pushing to get out and vote very hard.
Yeah, and that will be Republican and Democrat. So
absolutely,
that's across the board.
If you are a citizen, vote.
We want you to go vote, and we want you to exercise your right. So
absolutely, Mark. Any final words? So you got the final words tonight.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. I'm sorry that it's been a couple weeks since we've had a show. Just life has gotten in the way between Steve's travel, my work and things, and we're trying to get ourselves onto this Wednesday schedule because Fridays are filling up for us no matter what. It seems like every Friday we
Church League softball's back in Meade County.
And now we're throwing Church League softball in starting this week. So Friday out at Meade Olin, if you're interested in watching some good softball and
fellowship,
cheering and have some good fellowship, we invite you out. We'll start at 7:00 on this Friday. Every Friday after that, it'll start at 6:30. So come out and talk. Come out and see us.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.